It's literally the ultimate question, isn't it? The single universal experience that unites every human being who has ever lived, and yet it remains our absolute greatest mystery. What actually happens when we die? Do we wake up in some kind of paradise? Do we just cease to exist? Or do we immediately come right back to do it all over again?
Welcome to This Explainer. I am so pumped to guide you through this really fascinating mapping of human belief. Today, we're taking a strictly impartial, evidence-based look right at the sacred texts of major world religions to see exactly how they mechanically describe the afterlife. Together, we're going to break down some incredibly complex ancient blueprints. Let's get into it.
Okay, let's dive right in. First, we'll check out Islam's Bridge of Judgment, then uncover some major surprises in Judaism and Christianity. After that, we'll explore Hinduism's endless cycle, shift over to Buddhism's concept of consciousness and nirvana, and finally, look at the ancient blueprint of Zoroastrianism. We've got a packed journey, so let's hit the road.
Section 1. Islam's Bridge of Judgment.
So in the Islamic tradition, the texts are incredibly specific about the immediate, visceral reality of what happens the literal moment a person passes away. The earthly departure is swift and honestly deeply equalizing. The body is washed gently, usually 3 times, then it's wrapped in a simple white cloth called a kafan. Rich or poor, powerful or weak, everyone wears the exact same white cloth. The body is then buried within 24 hours, facing the holy Kaaba. This is followed by the janazah, which is a really unique funeral prayer with absolutely no bowing or prostration, just standing and asking for mercy. But as the texts tell us, the real journey, it's just beginning.
Because according to Islamic texts, the grave isn't just some quiet resting place, it's practically an interrogation room. 2 angels named Munkar and Nakir show up to ask 3 very distinct questions. Who is your Lord? What is your religion? And who is your prophet? Now, if he lived as a believer, the answers just flow easily. A window to paradise opens up, and your grave actually expands. But if you can't answer, the texts describe the grave becoming so tight it literally crushes your ribs, and a window to hell opens instead.
This specific period in the grave is known as barzakh. It's basically defined as a barrier state between death and the day of judgment. Everyone waits here. They just wait until a trumpet is blown and all of humanity is resurrected onto one massive plane. And at this final judgment, deeds are weighed on cosmic scales called mizan. The texts say even the weight of a single atom, like literally an atom, of good or evil is counted. Absolutely nothing is forgotten.
And man, here is where it gets intensely dramatic. To reach paradise, or Firdaus, every single soul must cross the Sirat Bridge. The texts describe this bridge as being stretched directly over hell. And get this, it's thinner than a hair and sharper than a sword. Believers cross it based on their deeds in life. Some fly across like lightning, while others are practically crawling. And this brilliantly illustrates the deep compassion in the tradition, right? Prophet Muhammad is said to stand at the very end of the bridge, pleading, "Oh Allah, save them, as his followers make this terrifying crossing.
Section 2. Surprises in Judaism and Christianity.
Now, Islam's cousin religions share some obvious common roots, but their mechanics for the afterlife take some completely unexpected turns. For instance, what's really interesting here is how in Judaism, hell is called Gehenna, and unlike in Islam or Christianity, it is not permanent. Think of it more like a spiritual washing machine. The texts say the absolute maximum time anyone spends there is just 12 months. That's it. After this purification, even the worst human who ever lived would eventually move on. Righteous people of all nations, not just Jews, go straight to Gan Eden, where they enjoy closeness to God.
Eventually, souls await Olam Haba, the world to come, which is this restored universe completely free of suffering. But the internal debate over what that actually looks like, it is fascinating. Orthodox Judaism expects actual physical bodies to literally come back to life. Reform Judaism, on the other hand, focuses way more spiritually on the eternal living soul. And meanwhile, Kabbalah, the mystical branch, teaches Gilgul. That's actual reincarnation, where your soul comes back to earth in different bodies until its spiritual purpose is completely fulfilled.
Then we have Christianity, which grew out of Judaism but introduced its own totally unique mechanics. Catholics introduced purgatory, basically a spiritual hospital for purification. The really unique part here is that the living can actually pray or offer masses to actively shorten a soul's time in purgatory. On the flip side, Orthodox Christianity describes this wild 40-day journey where the soul faces past actions at aerial toll houses. Heaven and hell aren't even seen as completely separate places, but simply different ways a soul experiences the overwhelming, raw presence of God. Protestant Christians, by the way, reject both of these entirely. They teach a direct, immediate path to heaven or hell based strictly on faith.
Section 3. Hinduism's Endless Cycle.
All right, we are moving from the linear worldview of the Abrahamic faiths, where you live, you die, and you're judged, to a massive cyclical paradigm. So the absolute crucial point in Hinduism is that your soul, your Atma, never actually dies. When your body is cremated and the ashes are scattered in a sacred river like the Ganges, your soul simply changes bodies like changing clothes. You're judged by the messengers of Yama, the god of death, and sent to either a heavenly Swarg or a hellish Naruk. But listen to this, it's only temporary. Once your karma is used up, you are reborn. This relentless, endlessly repeating cycle of birth and death is called samsara.
Because samsara is considered incredibly exhausting, the ultimate goal isn't actually heaven. It is moksha, total, complete liberation. You want off the ride. So how do you escape? Through righteous living, deep meditation, and spiritual knowledge. And the traditions vary beautifully here. Followers of Vishnu aim for his eternal realm, followers of Shiva seek to fully merge with him, and the philosophy of Advaita Vedanta teaches that your soul and the universal soul are already the exact same thing. Moksha is simply waking up to the reality that you have never, ever been separate from God.
Section 4. Buddhism, Consciousness and Nirvana.
Now, Buddhism takes the Hindu concept of reincarnation and twists it in a way that changes absolutely everything. It teaches that there is actually no permanent soul. Nothing permanent is reborn. So, what moves on? Consciousness. And this brilliantly illustrates the concept. It's like a candle lighting another candle. The new flame is definitely connected to the first, but it is not the same flame. This is exactly why Buddhism refers to it as rebirth rather than reincarnation.
Let's look specifically at Tibetan Buddhism, because they have one of the most vividly detailed maps of the afterlife anywhere in the world. They describe this intense 49-day waiting period called the bardo. Soon after death, you see a bright light. Recognize it and boom, you achieve instant enlightenment. But if you miss it, peaceful guiding figures appear. If you fail to realize that they are just projections of your own mind, you then face terrifying, wrathful figures. Monks will even read the Book of the Dead to the deceased to actively, verbally guide their consciousness through this entire maze.
So, if enlightenment isn't reached in the bardo, consciousness is reborn into one of 6 realms. You could end up in the God realm, living in pleasure, the animal realm, driven purely by instinct, the hungry ghost realm of endless dissatisfaction, or the hell realms, which are intense but again, strictly temporary. But here's a truly fascinating detail. Being reborn in the human realm is actually considered the absolute best possible outcome. Why? Because it offers the perfect balance of pleasure and pain needed to actually achieve enlightenment.
And what is the ultimate finish line of all this? Nirvana. Now, nirvana is not a place you go to. It is the end of craving, the end of ignorance, and complete, total freedom from the cycle of birth and death. As the texts describe it, it is a peace beyond words. It's like a single drop of water finally returning to the vast ocean. The journey itself simply ends.
Section 5. Zoroastrianism, the ancient blueprint.
Zoroastrianism is one of the oldest known religions in the entire world, predating and deeply influencing the Abrahamic faiths we discussed earlier. Looking at the different waiting periods across traditions really builds a unified picture here. We have the swift 24-hour Jewish and Islamic burials, the Orthodox Christian 40-day journey, the Tibetan 49-day bardo, and the 12-month Jewish Gehenna. While Zoroastrianism introduces a 3-day waiting period, where the soul actually stays near the body while specific prayers are recited.
Then, on the 4th day, the Zoroastrian soul arrives at the Chinvat Bridge. Sound a little familiar? Here you actually meet your own conscience, personified as a figure named Dana. If you are righteous, she is beautiful. The bridge widens, and you walk right into the house of song. But if you are wicked, she is terrifying. The bridge narrows, and you fall off into the house of lies. And what if your deeds are exactly, perfectly equal? You go to Hamastagan, which is a perfectly neutral waiting state.
Looking at our journey as a whole, it's pretty incredible. Islam aims for eternal paradise in Firdaus. Hinduism seeks moksha, literally escaping the cycle. Buddhism strives for nirvana, the end of craving itself. But Zoroastrianism's ultimate goal, Frashakariti, offers perhaps the most optimistic conclusion of all of them. Zoroastrianism teaches that hell is not eternal. At the end of time, a final cosmic renewal occurs. Evil itself is utterly destroyed. Even those in hell are purified by a river of molten metal, which, by the way, feels like warm milk to the righteous, until the entire universe is perfectly restored.
Today, there are only about 200,000 Zoroastrians left, but their ancient blueprint undeniably shaped the beliefs of billions. Which brings us to our final thought. We've looked at bridges thinner than a hair, 49-day conscious mazes, temporary spiritual washing machines, and the literal destruction of evil itself. Understanding how these ancient texts map the afterlife isn't just about what happens when we die, it's about what we value while we are absolutely alive. So how do these ancient, incredibly intricate attempts to understand the end of life shape the choices, the morals, and the empathy of billions of people every single day? Keep that question in mind as you look at the world around you. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I will see you next time as we dive into another fascinating topic.